Hey guys, this is your host Thomas Tyree here from On the Hot Podcast. Today, I have some bonus content for you guys. The bonus content we'll be covering today will be in the sport of football inside the college football world. In today's bonus segment, I'll be sharing my college football semifinals playoff prediction. So we're down to the final four teams in college football playoffs this year, and I think we're set up for an outstanding finish. If you look at it, 3 out of the 4 teams that are still a part of the dance, Oregon's never won a national championship in the program's history. Neither has Indiana, neither has Ole Miss. And the last time the Miami Hurricanes won a national championship was dating back all the way to 2001. So we're going to see someone that has not won it all or hasn't won it all in a long time finish the college football season as your national champions. And we got 2 good games in the Final Four, starting off with the Thursday night game that we'll see between Ole Miss and the Miami Hurricanes in the Fiesta Bowl. Now, Ole Miss has a chance to not only win a national championship for the first time in program's history, but go to a national championship game after their head coach Lane Kiffin abandoned them and took the job at LSU a month or so ago. This would be a perfect story for college football. And if Miami defeats Ole Miss in the Fiesta Bowl, they would have home field advantage for the national championship game taking place in Miami. So there's huge implications and ramifications on the line for 2 respective programs heading into the Fiesta Bowl. Game plans for these teams to follow, starting off with the Miami Hurricanes. The pass rush has to come alive. Now, the Miami Hurricanes pass rush, that's their bread and butter of their stellar defense this year. And they have had success all year long they've had success. But in the first 2 rounds of the college football playoffs they've been a part in, against Texas A&M in the first round, they sacked Marcel Reed 7 times in the victory against them, picked them off 2 times. Then in the Cotton Bowl victory against Ohio State, the reigning defending champions, they not only picked off Julian Sayin 2 times, but they sacked Julian Sayin 5 times in the victory against Ohio State. So I think the key ingredient for Miami is to get sacks, create turnovers, and get key third down stops to get the defense off the field, put the offense in good field position to cash in on points, whether that's 3 points or 6 points in this game against Ole Miss. Next, do your job offensively. Now, what I mean by do your job offensively is Carson Beck play mistake-free football. And honestly, he has not been asked to do too much in the college football playoffs this year. I mean, he averages like 100 to 130 passing yards in the first 2 games that they've been a part of, only 2 passing touchdowns, and that's worked out for him. I think Miami's best brand of offense is Carson Beck playing mistake-free football, and when they could be a complementary team, Carson Beck does his thing when he's asked, passing the football, and then they can run the football. Carson Beck, in my opinion, from evaluating him since he's been the starter at Georgia a few years ago, he's a perfect mature game manager. You look at his overall track record as a starter at Georgia and Miami, he has 36 victories, 5 losses in his college football starts in the last 3 seasons. So if this happens, if he plays mistake-free football and Miami's defense does what they're supposed to do, Miami has a chance to punch their ticket to the national championship game. And then you look at Ole Miss, they have to get Trinidad Chambliss going. Now, Trinidad Chambliss has won me over at the quarterback position. I am a huge fan of what this guy does on the field, and I think he's got to get going if Ole Miss is going to have a chance. He has to have a somewhat productive performance against Miami, something similar to what he did against Georgia in the Sugar Bowl last week against Georgia. I mean, he put on a show against Georgia. He had 362 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, and had so many stunning and stellar plays to help Ole Miss get past Georgia in that game. Man, he put on one hell of a show against Kirby Smart's defense. And I think he's going to have a somewhat similar performance against the Miami Hurricanes if they want to win the Fiesta Bowl and punch their ticket to the national championship game. So lean on Trinidad Chambliss to get going in the passing game. And then this is really important. Ole Miss should run a lot of pass protection plays to give Trinidad Chambliss time in the pocket to pass the football. Now, I just talked about it. Miami Hurricanes is bread and butter on the defensive side of the ball is their pass rush, their dangerous defensive line. They like to win the battle in the trenches against opposing offensive lines. Now, if you're going to be Ole Miss, you have to get extra pass protection for Trinidad Chambliss to have time to throw the ball and give him time to set up the offense in good, excellent plays. So I think what you could do is you could get the passing game going, get Trinidad Chambliss going with some screen plays, some intermediate routes, get the ball out of his hands quickly within 2 to 3 seconds. If you don't, you're in a world of trouble. And you should mix in the RPO style with Miami's defense. Now, Miami's defense has had their way against mobile quarterbacks all year long. And that goes to my point again, Marcel Reed, when they played Texas A&M, a mobile quarterback. He couldn't beat him with his legs. He had to beat him with his arm, and he couldn't do it, and he turned over the football twice, throwing 2 costly interceptions, especially one in the red zone to close out the game. So they got to get going with the passing game and get the ball out of his hands quickly, max protection, get a running back to pick up on a defensive end or a linebacker that's going to be crashing in, trying to put the pressure on Trinidad Chambliss, leave a tight end in extra pass protection at times as well. But also, Ole Miss is going to have to run the football. They cannot be one-dimensional and not put all of the pressure on Trinidad Chambliss to bail him out offensively. They got to run the football, and Keyjuan Lacy had 98 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns in the victory against Georgia last week. So I think they should run the ball with him and find success running the football, I should say, against Miami. But with that being said, I'm going to go with Ole Miss to defeat Miami in the Fiesta Bowl to punch their ticket to the national championship game. Now, history might repeat itself, guys. All the time in the Fiesta Bowl, the Miami Hurricanes in program history are 0-4 in the Fiesta Bowl. And they could extend their record to 0-5 all time or Thursday night's game. And I'm going with Ole Miss, so hopefully that prediction comes true. But Trinidad Chambliss at the quarterback position against Miami, I feel like could be too much for them. I think Trinidad Chambliss will find a way to break this Miami Hurricanes defense. I might be wrong on that, and you Miami Hurricane fans might come after me after the game is over like you all did when they defeated Ohio State. But I honestly believe that Trinidad Chambliss, if he gets going with max protection to stop Miami Hurricanes pass rush, leave a running back in pass protection to pick up on a defensive end or a linebacker that's been crashing in, trying to put the pressure on Trinidad Chambliss coming in the blitz, or have a tight end and max protection sets as well. I think if you're Ole Miss, you got to get the ball out of Trinidad Chambliss's hands quickly within 2 to 3 seconds. Get going with some screen plays, some intermediate routes to warm up the pass game for Trinidad Chambliss to go down the field and have success with his arm like he did against Georgia's defense in the Sugar Bowl last week. Also, I think they cannot be one-dimensional. They got to get the running game going like Keyjuan Lacy, who had 98 rushing yards last week in the victory with 2 rushing touchdowns. They got to get the running game going. They cannot be one-dimensional, only pass the football, not running the football. And I also think they have to get Trinidad Chambliss going in the RPO game. You got to get him going with his legs. I know the Miami Hurricanes defense has had their way against mobile quarterbacks all year long. And that goes back to my point a few moments ago, the prime example when they played Texas A&M. Marcel Reed is a mobile quarterback, but he couldn't beat him with his legs. He tried to beat him with his arm, and he was unsuccessful, throwing 2 costly interceptions. But for some reason, I honestly believe this game could come down to the quarterback play between Trinidad Chambliss and Carson Beck. And that goes to my point. Carson Beck is the mature game manager in college football. Again, 36 victories, 5 losses in his collegiate starts with Georgia and Miami in the last 3 years. If he's asked to do more than become a game manager in crucial situations in this game, I have no confidence in him because he's averaging 100 to 130 passing yards in the first 2 games against Texas A&M and Ohio State, only having 2 passing touchdowns. He hasn't really been asked to do much in the college football playoffs. What if we're in a scenario that he's asked to do much and the defense can't bail him out? If that happens, I'm riding with Ole Miss. I think they'll get to the national championship without Lane Kiffin by their side. And yeah, that's going to be my prediction. Ole Miss over Miami in the Fiesta Bowl. In the final game, you will see Indiana against Oregon in the Peach Bowl. Now, this is a rematch from what we saw not a few weeks ago, but a few months ago in college football, where Indiana defeated Oregon earlier on in the season. Now, both Indiana and Oregon has a chance to win their first national championship in program's history, and that goes back to my point. When these two teams matched up against each other a few months ago, Indiana got the better of Oregon, winning that game 30-20 And that Indiana was the only team to defeat Oregon this college football season. So we'll see if the history can repeat itself. Game plans for Oregon: put the pressure on Fernando Mendoza. Now, they have had a lot of success rushing the passer and collecting a lot of sacks in the first two games that they've been a part of in the college football playoffs against JMU and Texas Tech. And I think if they put the pressure on Fernando Mendoza, that could open the door for Fernando Mendoza to make mistakes and throw costly interceptions in this game against Oregon. Next, Oregon, I think they got to play complementary football. They got to be able to pass the ball and run the football. Alabama's offense was stuck in first gear when they played Indiana in the Rose Bowl last week, and that cannot happen. They tried to pass the football, they couldn't. They tried to run the football, they could not. Dante Moore needs to get going passing the football, and Jordan Davison, their running back, needs to get going running the football. I mean, he had success against Texas A&M, had 2 rushing touchdowns in the victory against Texas Tech in the victory last week. I've been saying a lot of Texas teams, I apologize. But those are game plans for Oregon. Now for Indiana, I think they got to have a strong defensive performance here, riding a wave of momentum after giving Alabama a pure belt to ass in the Rose Bowl, winning that game 38-3, and they held Alabama to 3 for 11 on third down conversions, had 3 sacks, a turnover, only holding Alabama to 3 points in a college football playoff game. That's next level coaching and next level play from the Indiana football program. Now, last but not least, Indiana's got to lean on Fernando Mendoza, their stellar Heisman Trophy winner. Fernando Mendoza has led Indiana all the way up to this point. An undefeated season, a Big Ten championship, a dominant playoff victory, and a Heisman Trophy year for Indiana. Now, he's going to have to use his football IQ to read what the defense is going to give him, what the Oregon defense is going to provide him. And he has to be alert when the blitzes are coming. If they're playing man-to-man, you're playing Tampa 2, cover 3. Anything that Oregon's defense throws at him, he's got to be prepared for. He has to have good awareness in this game. He has to display his accuracy and learn from his mistakes that he had against Oregon in the first game on the road, because it wasn't a really good performance in my opinion. He could have done more. He only had 215 passing yards with an interception. I think he could have did much more against this Oregon defense. And that's no slander, because Oregon's defense is top-notch. But I honestly feel like Fernando Mendoza, if Indiana's going to have to win this game, he's going to have to step up against that stellar defense that Oregon provides. But with that being said, I'm going to go with Indiana to defeat Oregon in the Peach Bowl to punch their ticket to the national championship game. I think both teams are playing very well, and both defenses have stepped up since the first time these two teams played each other in the college football season months ago, with Indiana defeating Oregon in the first matchup. But I think Indiana is going to get the better of Oregon in this matchup. I'm trusting Indiana's defense to have a good performance against this Oregon Ducks offense. And I think Indiana can find the blueprint to stopping Dante Moore. And the victory, that when they played against each other the first time, Indiana sacked Dante Moore 5 to 6 times. And their first win, and the pass rush was all over Dante Moore, not allowing him to get comfortable in the pocket and make stellar plays throwing the football. Indiana, I think their defense will get key third down stops, get sacks and turnovers to make Oregon's offense feel out of rhythm late in the ball game, and big moments, big clutch moments in this game. But if it's going to come down to it, I'm trusting the coaching and the quarterback, the coaching of Indiana and the quarterback that Indiana has over the coaching and the quarterback that Oregon has. So I think I'm going to trust Curt Cignetti and Fernando Mendoza over Dan Lanning and Dante Moore to help Indiana punch their ticket to the national championship game and possibly win their first national championship game in the program's history. But that is all the time I have for you guys today. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for listening. This is your host, Thomas Tyree, signing off, and I'll see you guys on next week's episode.